We just want to give a little content warning. This episode does have a brief discussion around sexual trauma. If you would like resources to help you with that, we will have them in the show notes for you. If you choose to not listen to this episode, we completely understand. Why is talking about sex still taboo when we all do it, think about it, and enjoy it? Today, we're going to break down what it means to be sex positive, why it matters, and how embracing sex positivity can transform your confidence, relationships, and self-worth. Welcome to Not Safe for Brunch. In this podcast, we're here to bring sex, insight, and real-world education to the table unapologetically. Think about it as having those important, unfiltered brunch conversations with your closest friends about sex, relationships, and everything in between. With over 55 years of experience combined in the intimacy industry, helping individuals and couples focus on breaking down barriers, reducing shame, and empowering people to embrace their desires and relationships with confidence. Hi, I'm Coralie. I live in the Vancouver area. I'm a married mom of two, half empty nesting, one in, one out. And my secret power is I love a good rabbit hole. I love digging deep and finding the truth or the root cause of a situation.
And I'm Amber. I live in Ontario. I'm married. I'm a mom and a GMA. And an unapologetic quality of mine is I weed through the fluff and I get to the point.
I love it. I am Vicki. I'm in Manitoba. I'm divorced and I'm re-entering the relationship space. I am a mom to two grown-ups, and my magic is making meaningful connections and relationshiping, which of course creates trust.
All right. Welcome back to the podcast where we get real about the stuff we were maybe too embarrassed to talk about in health class.
And I'm still recovering from the misinformation that we got in those educational films, you know, the ones with the awkward hand-drawn diagrams. Yeah, those ones.
And I'm here to remind everyone that sexual health and happiness are totally normal, and we're all still figuring this stuff out. So let's be real. We've all been there, right? That awkward moment when you realize the facts you were told just don't add up to real life. We've all heard the whispers, the judgment, and maybe even felt that pang of shame about our desires and experiences. Let's face it, growing up, sex ed was lacking.
No kidding.
What is sex positivity really? I mean, let's define it. What does it mean for us?
I mean, I think for me, you guys know I talk about consent all the time. Consent is something that's I think is probably paramount. And of course, respect and removing the shame of being sexual.
I think being more like sex positivity is more like leave the lights on kind of thing. Like, I just feel like shutting the lights off, you're just shaming it even more. So like, that's kind of my thought is like, do it in the middle of the afternoon and just like turn all the lights on. It's fine.
Amber's just loud and proud.
Some days.
I love it. Let's just do it with the lights on. How about noon?
I'm all about afternoon sex. I'm just like, who has time in the morning for one, and you're tired and groggy, and at night you're done with the day. I'm like, screw that. Do it in the afternoon.
We're afternoon people too, like in the morning. I mean, I prefer to do it in the morning, but he wouldn't. He'd prefer to do it at night, but I wouldn't. So
yeah,
we meet in the middle. And as someone who used to be only in the dark, whatever, what changed my thinking about it was I was like, what's he going to do? Divorce me? I mean, and if he's going to divorce me, he's me naked at the lights on, I guess we're not meant to be anyways. And that was like 25 years ago.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about sex positivity and how it differs from the way we were taught about sex growing up. For me, it was all, you know, especially in school, it was just how not to get pregnant, which was abstinence. There was no sex positivity. In fact, even when my daughter was growing up and she took sex ed, I mean, she taught masturbation at recess. Like, it was ridiculous. She had good information, thankfully.
at recess. I love it. And it's funny because I went to Catholic school. Our sex ed was just don't get pregnant, don't get STDs, that kind of thing, right?
I had the benefit of taking sex ed twice because I did 8th grade here in Canada and 9th grade in the States. And when I got to the States, it was a lot more fear tactics. You know, when I
Mm.
was here in Canada, I didn't see the photographs of what an STI looks like on a genital, but that was
Oh,
right
and they
there.
showed you that in the
Oh,
States?
yes. Oh, yes. Like,
Interesting.
it was very fear-based. It
Here
didn't
they
scare
just showed
me.
us here they just showed us a video of some woman having a baby without drugs, and I was like, "Ew, that sounds like a bad idea." I'm not gonna do that. Oh my gosh. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the role of shame in sexuality. So, how has shame shaped our relationships with our bodies and desires? Let's talk about that.
I could circle right back to how I used to always have the lights off. Growing up in shame about sex, in shame about my body, especially being someone who was a size 12 ooh, when I was in school, so fat that there was so much shame attached to it. And I think when it comes to the shame and sex, I mean, I'm glad there's us and people like us that are doing the work, but I think it has been shamed for generations and centuries. It's kind of like having a baby, you know, 9 months in, 9 months out. However long we've been dealing with it is how long it's going to take to fully correct it.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think that there's also an age factor here. You get to your 40s, you've had children, everyone's seen the business. If you're in labor, you're just, come on in, one more intern, no big deal. Everybody's seen it. If you've ever had a female reproductive disorder or condition, you've had a million people up in your business. Like, we just get to this place where we're totally desensitized from what our body looks like to the viewer. And I think that there's a little bit of that age that comes with that, that experience that comes with that, where we just kind of go, yeah, you know what? Take it or leave it, man.
You're right, the age thing. If I went back 10 years, I would be like, it's totally different. I have a different mind frame
Sure.
around it. But shame doesn't just come from like just the way you were brought up or taught about sex, but it can also be like a survivor's kind of guilt around sex if you had any kind of childhood trauma with like sexual assault or
Absolutely.
even as an adult, right? Like you can have a lot of shame around sex with some kind of trauma that you may have experienced.
Right.
Mhm.
That doesn't include or hinge on pleasurable intercourse or a positive experience. That
Yeah. Yeah.
completely makes
Mhm.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense because so many times when people are in that situation, whether you're male or female,
Yes.
there's a part of your brain that probably for at least a small time somehow blames yourself for it, even if you were a kid,
Hmm.
right? So it takes a lot to come out of that. Therapy. Let's high five therapy, everyone.
On tap, just like put it in
Mhm.
my veins, that therapy. For real. I'll just mainline me. It'll be good. It's fine.
Mhm.
Yeah, and if you're having any kind of shame around it or any kind of little triggers or anything, I think it's really important that you share that with your partner too. Like if you had any kind of experience that's negative and they're doing something that kind of brings you back to that, and it's like, can we not do it this way? And
Yeah.
that comes back to Vicky's communication
Yeah,
advocacy.
the
Yeah.
sex decompress, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if something does trigger you in the moment and your partner doesn't know about it or doesn't know to maneuver around some of that stuff for you, how? That's it.
Mhm.
The
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
We want to give them the map and we don't want to stay there. So we owe them that and we owe ourselves that.
Yeah, most importantly, ourselves for sure. Mhm. Yeah.
Now, I also think though that there's like a double standard when it comes to sexuality and being open and positive when it comes to like women being shamed over men, right? Like I just think that there's an issue there where if I decided that I wanted to go and have sex with three different men in a given month, whatever, I'm having a good time because I'm single and I'm all for it. But that then I'm labeled
Yeah.
as a woman.
Hey, you
Mhm.
guys, I don't know if I told you this, but I did an event recently with a young group of women. I would say they were in their mid to late 30s, and it was her 50 party. And I didn't understand until I got there that it was 50 sexual partners that she had had. And I was just like, girl, that is so
Yeah.
progressive, right? I was like, yeah, it's totally like, so, however, we did have a conversation at that party where we were talking about how if that was publicized outside of this group of incredibly loving and supportive friends, that she would have a name attached to that. But if she were if she were male, that chances she's a dude. They're like,
Yeah.
yeah, get it. I love the sexual freedom of it.
Yeah, I think also too, there's all these tropes that are said, like if a woman has a lot of partners, then, she's going to be looser. But we don't say if a man's had a lot of partners, it's going to like shave it off and shave it down.
No.
We're going to start a new thing.
Yeah.
We're gonna start rumors about what happens to men when they have multiple partners
Yeah.
and many, many partners.
Equality. Equality.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So anyway, I don't know if I ever told you that, but I thought that was interesting. I was like, dang, girls, that's great. Do that. Yeah.
That is cool. I love it.
I find, anyways, that it is the people in my age range, even the women, that are more judgy about it, because it's been ingrained in them for so long.
Yeah.
So,
It's even when it comes to relationship styles, like, sometimes I worry about, I've been married twice. So how will I be viewed? Right. So we're not necessarily talking about sexuality or partnerships, but it's how, being married twice, there's a stigma to that. Like, is somebody going to want to be with somebody who's been married twice and hasn't figured it out? I don't know. Some people think that maybe I figured it out and that's why I'm single. Right. So yeah, who knows?
I'd marry you.
Thanks.
How can we unlearn these messages and embrace that positive mindset?
Therapy.
Circle back around.
Right. And I think even just because I mean it's not affordable or accessible to everybody, right? But just having those conversations, listening to podcasts like this that open up the conversation. And if you have some good friends, I would bet that they would be open and willing to hear from you because guaranteed they may be feeling the same way. And it's going to open up a conversation between your girlfriends.
I agree. And I do think that we have to let go of worrying about what other people think about us. And when it comes to how many partners we've had or how much experience we've had or blah, 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 nobody needs to know that anyway. Body count is not an actual thing. That is not something you are required to share. So when we're talking about our sexuality, take care of yourself, right? It's just like taking care of our physical health and what we're eating and if we're exercising and what that looks like. And all of that matters, as does this. And it's nobody's business what you're logging as far as time or energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only thing I'm going to judge is like, did you use condoms? Like,
Were you safe?
yeah, like be safe. Yeah. And I think also too, sometimes we don't even realize that we have these judgmental thoughts or are thinking judgmental things until the thought comes into our head or until it comes out of our mouth. And if you say it or you think it and you feel this kind of internal, like, that's a sign that you're learning and that you need to pay attention to it and maybe rephrase that. Maybe not in that moment if you don't feel comfortable, but give you an opportunity to like dig into that. If you say it or think it and then have that reaction internally, go there.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. Anytime something makes me gasp, woo, to me, I always look at that as a telltale sign that there's education to be had. So,
Yeah.
and that I'm open to it. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a really good piece of advice.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's talk about sex positivity inside your relationship. So, how can sex positivity improve communication and intimacy in a long term relationship? Well, I'm going to toss that ball over into your court.
Circle back to my lights on moment. Doing that reduced the shame. It reduced the shame I had, not necessarily around sex, but around my own body and what it looked like when I was having sex. And the more we reduce the shame, then it's just going to be a natural byproduct of being more positive in that relationship.
I also think that how your partner receives you in a relationship affects greatly how we feel about our sexuality inside that relationship and even on our own by ourselves. That has to be a big piece that you look at because if things are not positive together, that's going to mess with you.
I was scrolling through TikTok the other day and I wish I would have saved this TikTok, but it was a woman who was telling a story about how her daughter had contacted her and said like, "Mom, I'm really really glad that you were the naked mom."
Oh, I saw that one.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah.
And it was so good. And I'm like, I think I'm going to have to ask Jonna, but I'm like, I feel like I might have been the naked mom too. She's body positive. Like she's got this awesome frame of mind. But I often would walk around with just a bra on, underwear, whatever. Like, I'm just like, la la, la, walking around the house like it didn't matter. And that's what this whole naked mom thing was. And the daughter was like, thank you so much because I'm more confident in my own skin because I just saw you walking around with all the bits.
I was not a naked mom. I wish I was. I mean, I wasn't like a cover myself up totally, but I think when my kids were young, like really young, I was. But then as they got older, especially having a son, I didn't
Yeah.
want any sort of discomfort there or anything like that at all. But I mean, I've already talked about my journey on my stuff with my own body. I did keep taking my clothes off the older I got.
I
I
just
mean,
kept
I've
stripping layers off.
yeah, I mean, we have a pool. I'm in a bikini every single day, all summer long. So
I love that. Yeah, I think that we didn't spend a lot of time worrying about whether or not there were clothing present. My kids always knocked on the door, but if they wandered in, they wandered in. I mean, it was just one of those things. So, yeah, we didn't put a lot of pressure around that. And of course, as the kids got older, it is what it is. But having a daughter is different than having a son. And you do want to make sure that there are some lines that are respected there. And we want to build positive men, so we want to make sure that we're respecting boundaries. But yeah, I agree. I didn't worry about anything. I didn't, and I found that TikTok to be very interesting. So let's talk about what it means to be sexually compatible. How do you navigate differences in desire or kinks? Maybe your wants and your needs look different from a sexual partner's. How do we manage that?
I think being sexually compatible is a variety of things, you know? It's like your libido levels, it's your preferences, it's your communication, Vicki. You know, your emotional connection, physical chemistry. And I don't think that in order to be sexually compatible, you have to check off all those boxes, but you have to have a couple or at least be willing to work towards a couple. Everyone can't fill everyone else's cup all the time. And I'm not saying that you have to be non monogamous to do that. Like, in a monogamous relationship, I'm in a monogamous relationship. And I think that as long as you are, like I said, you're checking off some of those boxes and you're okay with the other ones. Like we might watch different styles of porn. Whatever.
For sure.
Well, and I think too is just trying the things. Like be open to at least trying them once or twice, right? If your partner's like, I'd really like to try this, be maybe open to it or come back with an alternative, right? Okay, well, I don't want to go that far, but I'd like to try this. Are you okay with that? And if it turns out that you're not good with it, anal comes to mind. I'm like, if your partner's like, I want anal, and you're like, ah, no, it's not my thing. Backdoor is out, exit only, and you just ex-nay it altogether, then they should at least respect those boundaries. But if you try it and you don't like it, then they really need to respect those boundaries.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
we need to do an episode on that
I think
because
we
I
do
think
too.
a lot of people think anal means like stick it in the hole. And no, it can be stimulation outside it.
Yeah.
If you've never had that, you're never going to be okay with,
Mm-mm.
I mean, not never. I don't believe in absolutes, but in general, you're not going to be
Stay
okay.
tuned. Backdoor episodes coming your way.
For
Yeah.
sure. For sure. I always say, it doesn't have to be back door. It could be back porch. What's like nothing. What's wrong with
Why?
what's wrong with a little porch sitting? Yeah, no one really
You've never said that to us before. I've never heard it.
Me neither. I like it. Yeah, I think, yeah, at least be open to trying. I'm going to say almost everything because there's some hard boundaries
Sure.
that, and I think if you have a boundary, it's a red flag or at least a yellow one that needs some therapy if your partner's not respecting it. Like if your partner
100%.
says like, well, I really want to have a threesome. And generally in a heteronormative relationship, when that happens, it's if the man's proposing it, it's because he wants to be with two women and throw it back. Okay. Like, I mean, if you are open to the idea, great. But if it's something you're kind of struggling with, I would throw back, well, can we also do one with two men? See how that reaction is.
Yeah.
And, and see, and if you're like, and if you just decide like, yeah, no, that's not something I want to do. And that's a hard boundary. That's okay. Like,
Yeah.
being sexually compatible, there's a lot of respect there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree. And I just think again, it boils down to the conversation. If there is a differential in the amount of sexual activity, if one person is dissatisfied because once in a while isn't enough and they really need more, and sometimes it's just a conversation, right? I mean, there are reasons why people open up marriages. There are reasons why people create alternative scenarios. They can work, they cannot work, but it really, you have to be in a very emotionally mature relationship to be able to have that conversation. But what if it has to be had? I mean, are you willing to have the conversation and risk losing the relationship? Are you willing to take a chance and maybe, maybe then it increases. Maybe it changes the partnership. Maybe it change. I don't know. It's just, again, you're never going to know if you don't ask the things.
I think it's important too to do research, because
Yes.
something that, I mean, it wasn't spoken about a lot when my kids were young, but as they got older, I learned about it. And that's like, if you are, say, for example, a stay-at-home mom and you have a partner that works and you have kids climbing over you all day, the last thing you want is to be touched. And if your partner, if every time they're touching you, it's because they want sex, that sort of stuff needs to be talked about with your partner. I mean, we could do an episode on a lot of things.
It's in the bag. We're going to do it.
Right?
Don't worry.
If you're listening and there's something that you're hearing that you want to hear more of, let us know.
Yes,
Mhm.
tell us for
Yeah,
sure.
if you're like, expand that thought, please, we will.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about pop culture and sex positivity. How do you think that pop culture, like movies, TV, music, influenced our views on sex? Do you think it's for the better, for worse?
I think it's fantasy.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. How did you two have to tell your kids the difference between fantasy and reality when you catch them watching porn? Like, come on, like, right? And like, don't expect anyone to do that for you, honey. I love you, but they're not
It
going to love you that much.
it doesn't even need to be porn. Like, I had to have that conversation over Twilight.
Yeah, right. Yeah, totally.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, that kind of was porn. No, just kidding.
Well, and I grew up on like soap operas. I mean,
Yeah,
my mom would
right.
watch soap operas in the middle afternoon, and there was so much sex in soap operas, but it
Mhm.
just seemed like this electrifying sexual tension. It just wasn't like
Yes.
that,
Yeah.
it's just not that, it's not reality.
We totally do our young people a disservice by making them believe that there's this like magnetism that happens, that there's this is my person and it's just whoa, I think that there can be those feelings, but I think that that's not necessarily going to turn into a healthy relationship. It can. Not
Mhm.
saying it can't, but I think that we often believe that if we don't feel that instantaneous magnetism, that this isn't your person. But it can grow, it can build, and that's probably a lot healthier than just feeling like, oh my God, I have to be in this person's present. We call it love bombing now for a reason, right?
Mhm.
I think we
Totally.
need more pop culture that shows us the awkwardness
Yeah.
of how a sexual experience can be,
Yeah.
right? Even 20, 30 years later, like sometimes you just go, whoa, what the hell was that? We
Yeah.
could do better next time.
I
Right. We
also
just have the confidence now to have that conversation to be like, I don't know what we're doing, but let's
Right?
revisit. Yeah.
Mhm. Also, too, I think, like, in our generation anyways, going back to the slut shaming, like, that happened a lot in movies and TV shows, the loose girl or whatever it was, and virginity was put on a pedestal. Look at Breakfast Club. Look
Yeah.
at 16 Candles. The virgin was like, everyone just wanted the virgin. And even going into like when my daughter was coming of age, the way that people talked about freaking Disney stars or even Mary Kate and Ashley can't wait till they're adults, and it's just gross. It's really gross, and I'm really glad. I love on social media seeing, even looking back into 2010 kind of movies and stuff, or even the early 2010s, how people are like, maybe that was wrong.
Yeah. Even songs that we're listening to, sometimes I'm listening back going, what were we really singing about there? What was that? Do you think that there are any shows or characters that get it right when it comes to portraying sex positivity now?
You know what? Degrassi was a good one. I think they really touched on a lot of taboo topics. But sex education that was recently brought out, it's actually pretty good and it has like some awkward moments in it. I don't know, I really, really liked it.
I think Sex in the City, I mean, looking at it now again from a 2025 lens, there's a lot of problematic things in it, but what I loved about it, had characters that wanted to have sex. They were different types. Samantha was the one that people would generally look at as like, you know, trampy, for using lack of a better term. Charlotte was like the virgin, but she wanted it. She was out there getting it. Miranda was very smart. She was a lawyer, wanted it, getting it. The only one who really wasn't, I mean, I know she was, but they didn't focus on it as much, was Carrie. She was just writing about all of her friends' sex lives. I don't remember any big sex scenes with her in it, but that show came out 99, 2000. It was a game changer for the time.
Yeah, it's funny too because I think about talking about this, and you guys are talking about shows, and I'm thinking about like Mona from Who's the Boss. I'm thinking
Oh,
about
yeah.
remember her? She was
Love
this
Mona.
siren,
Hashtag goals.
right? I'm thinking about
Blanche.
even Blanche, the Golden Girls, right? There was there's always the one friend,
Always the one friend.
right? There's always one in the group, and it's interesting because while they may have, I don't want to say judged one another, but they definitely were, oh, well, her, that's how she is. But there was like this feeling of sort of acceptance around it. And I love looking back on some of that and thinking, yeah, that wasn't terrible.
Yeah. Even though those characters were a lot of times the butt of the joke in the show, we
Yes.
loved them. We loved
Yeah.
them. They were often the funniest characters in the show. And it definitely gave women permission to be more open about that side of them. Yeah. Game changer. Oh my God, I just totally forgot about Who's the Boss. Loved that show.
Just keep putting it on our watch list. All right. So now we've just segued right into talking about sex positivity at every age, right? So
Yeah.
how does it change as we get older? We've talked about that as, you guys have talked about how you've changed inside your relationships. And for me, my relationships are changing, right? I'm almost a different person and I'm growing and getting better every time. And at least for myself, I really like who I am. I really love the transformation that has occurred with my life. And I'm not mad about that stuff. And I think that certainly in the business of sexual health and wellness, as we've been in for so many years now, that permission to just be who you need to be and to be able to raise people in our families to embrace themselves and who they are, and acceptance and love. And I just think that we can only get better.
Yeah. I am really lucky. My grandparents, they didn't raise me talking about sex. But as I became a teen and a young adult, my mom and all of her siblings, I would just hear rumors and stories, either through someone else or directly, they told me about catching them all the time. Like they were rabbits. Like they were doing it all the time. And then as I got older and as I got into the industry that we're in, they were huge supporters. And it was nice. They passed away both in the last decade and a half, in their late 70s and 80s. And they were basically doing it up until the very end. And I think we should all be like that, especially too being a woman. And I don't know if this is true being a man, but we all know what lack of movement in the vulva, vagina, all that area, how it can affect us. So whether you have a partner or not, you should have a vibrator.
100%, right? I always say masturbate twice a day, whether you need it or not.
Yeah. There was that TikTok that went viral earlier, maybe New Year's Eve, something about someone said that the labia falls off, the labia minora falls off. And yeah, my daughter sent it to me and she was like, "Is this true?" And I was like, no. And what happens is if we aren't keeping things moisturized, and sometimes it's moisture, sometimes you need hormone replacements, but that skin can become really dry. So it shrinks, right? And so it's it's the fun exercises. Consider it your workout.
Let's talk about the myth that sexuality sort of fades with age. I think that we're all of similar demographic, the three of us, but debunked.
Yeah, I think that when we were growing up and even in our young adulthood, there was always this idea that once a woman is menopausal or goes through menopause, that she just doesn't want to have sex anymore. And absolutely not true. I'm not on the other side yet, but I've been
Mhm.
doing a lot of research. I mean, I can't wait to be on the other side, but I've been doing a lot of research and listening to a lot of other people who have been on the other side, who are on the other side. One of them is right here, who are through and they are still having great sex. And a lot of them say they're having better sex. So we have to let go of that whole notion that once you go through menopause, it's over because it's just beginning. You don't have to worry about
Right?
bleeding.
There's no time of the month you gotta hop in the shower anymore. It's all good to go.
Yeah.
Always ready. I will say, being the postmenopausal of the crew, I also had a very difficult reproductive medical experience when I was younger. I had stage 4 endometriosis. My body was internally an absolute disaster. I had been violently ill since I was about 13 years old because of the adhesions and just all of the things that come along with endo. And any of my endo sisters out there know exactly what I'm talking about. And I don't know if this will be true for everyone, but for me, as soon as I was sort of getting to that perimenopausal and then through to postmenopause, a lot of that subsided for me. I get the odd twinge here and there, but during those years of being really, really sick, my libido was lower. That naturally, I was unwell, right? I was hurting. Sex hurt. There wasn't a lot of bridges for those kinds of gaps. It didn't really matter what I did. So now I'm living this sort of pain-free life and I'm just like, yeah,
You got to catch up.
yeah, I got work to
All
do,
the
man.
catch up.
I got work to do. But again, emotionally, you're more sexually charged when your body feels like it's working for you. So I
Mhm.
know that a lot of women go through menopause and then feel like they're not in that place. I think that I had a different experience because I was so sick prior. So if you're looking for any support postmenopausally, please don't be like, well, Vicki, blah, blah, blah. No, I may very well be the unicorn of menopause. I don't know. So definitely do your research and get some help because like Coralie said, you may have to take some HRTs. There might be something that helps to sort of bring that back for you.
I think also too that, and this is something from I got from reading the Menopause Manifesto by Dr. Jen Gunter, who we've already talked about her a lot here. Love her. One of the things she mentioned is that when people who know what to expect in menopause and are educated about it have fewer symptoms. So it makes me wonder if you've been living your whole life with this voice in your head or from society saying you're going to hate sex after menopause. It could have an effect on whether you do or not, right? So stay informed.
I
Stay
love
educated.
that idea of writing your own story. That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
beautiful.
Everyone's experience is going to be different. Like I have been down the perimenopause train because I just keep watching all these videos and learning and learning and learning because I'm at that perimenopause stage. And I just find it so helpful to see all of that information and know that everybody's different because like
Mhm.
one person's feeling this and this person's feeling that. And then the other person's like, nah, it was nothing.
As older adults, I think that advocating for better sexual health care is really, really important. I think that knowing that people who may be caring for us, obviously in much later years, even than we are now, recognizing that just because we're older doesn't mean that we're not sexual. Years ago, I worked in personal care, and I'll tell you, there were a lot of gentlemen that I would wander down to the local pharmacy to get the condoms that they needed for when their wives came to visit, like some people are younger in personal care scenarios and they still have lives and spouses and a life and a wantingness to be and feed that side of themselves. So I just think it's so important that even in healthcare that our providers recognize that there is a role that can be played.
Yeah. Last May, I spoke at our local senior resource center. And when the lady booked me, and it's not a home, it's not a place where people live, it's where people, I think it's 50 and up, can go and just have access to different resources. They help people. And they also have like games and community and all this stuff. Really great little place locally. I'm going to be 50 in May. So maybe I'll start going. But the woman who works there asked me if I could do a speak. They do a thing every week and they have a different guest who comes in and talks about different things. And she asked if I would come in and speak to seniors about sexual health. And I was like, absolutely. So it was about 2 months between the time she booked me and the time it happened. But a lot of times she said to me, I don't know what kind of reaction we're going to get. I just really know this needs to be talked about. She was very sex positive, and she just said multiple times, like, there might only be a couple people in the room. And I was like, I don't care if there's 2 people, or I think the room filled 60, full standing
Mhm.
room. Like, you could not find a seat. That's how many people came to learn
Amazing.
what I had to say. And I think that it's good to create a space for that. If there's an opportunity, if you know of a seniors resource center in your town and you are in sexual health and wellness and listening to this, or you have someone who uses those facilities, put the bug in their ear to go do that. Cause yeah, I was shocked, standing room only. And she was shocked too. And I got a standing ovation. It was amazing.
Love that.
All right. At the end of the day, sex positivity is about embracing who you are, what you want, and what makes you feel good without judgment or shame.
And remember, it's okay to take your time. Unlearning decades of societal conditioning, it's not easy, but it is worth it.
So, whether you're exploring new aspects of your sexuality or just starting to have these conversations, we're here for it. Let's keep breaking taboos. Thanks for pulling up a chair at our unapologetic brunch table today. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. It's like tipping your server, but for podcasts. And hey, sign up for our weekly newsletter using the link in the show notes so you never miss the juiciest, most unfiltered chats we're serving up. Remember, brunch isn't just about the mimosas, it's about the authentic connection and keeping it unapologetically real. Until next time, let's keep the brunch vibes alive and the conversation flowing.